The studio lights blazed down on the stage, casting a spotlight on the two figures seated across from each other. Tension crackled in the air like static. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens, sensing something unusual was about to unfold. This wasn't just another daytime talk show segment. It was a moment that would ripple across headlines and dinner tables for weeks. Whoopi Goldberg, the sharp-witted, no-nonsense host of The View, sat with her arms folded. Her voice, usually peppered with humor and insight, now carried a sharper tone. Across from her sat John F. Kennedy Jr., son of America's most iconic political family, whose calm, almost haunting presence often seemed to quiet even the most chaotic rooms. It had started out like any other segment, polite introductions, light banter, and the kind of surface-level pleasantries that filled daytime TV. But as the conversation shifted toward the current state of politics and social justice, Whoopi's demeanor changed. Something about John's softly spoken, centrist take on current issues rubbed her the wrong way. "You talk about unity," Whoopi said, her voice rising, "but it's easy to say that when you come from privilege. You don't know what it's like to be ignored, to be silenced, to be told your story doesn't matter. You don't live where we live, John. Maybe it's time you went back to the bayou and saw what real America looks like." The studio fell silent. Even the crew, seasoned professionals who had seen hundreds of on-air confrontations, froze. John didn't flinch. There was no flash of anger in his eyes, no tightening of his jaw. He simply inhaled, slowly, looked directly at Whoopi, and paused. The silence stretched, not awkwardly, but intentionally. A moment of stillness that drew everyone in. Then he spoke. "Whoopi," he said gently, "I didn't come here to speak from a pedestal. I came here to listen. And I came here to share what I've learned. Not because I have all the answers, God knows I don't, but because I believe deeply that we're more alike than different. My father taught me that real leadership means hearing voices you don't understand. My mother taught me that strength comes from compassion, not dominance." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. "I've been to the bayou," he continued. "I've walked the streets of New Orleans after Katrina. I've sat in Harlem churches after shootings. I've listened to mothers cry over sons lost to violence and systems that failed them. And I've also seen hope there. I've seen people fight every single day with more courage than I'll ever possess." Whoopi leaned back, visibly moved, but trying not to show it. Her eyes softened. She hadn't expected that. No one had. "But you're right," John added. "I haven't lived your story. I can't, but that doesn't mean I don't care. And it doesn't mean I won't fight alongside you, even if I get it wrong sometimes." A tear rolled silently down the cheek of a woman in the audience. What happened next was unscripted and unforgettable. Whoopi leaned forward, this time, without the defensive posture. "That's all we want, John," she said, her voice cracking just slightly. "We just want to know we're not in this alone." The crowd erupted in applause. Not the kind of applause that comes from excitement, but the kind that rises from somewhere deeper. Respect, relief, recognition. In that 15-minute segment, two people from vastly different worlds found common ground. Not by agreeing on every issue, but by meeting each other in a place of shared humanity. The moment quickly went viral, not because it was explosive or scandalous, but because it was real, unfiltered, emotional, and deeply human. For days after, clips of the exchange flooded social media. Commentators praised John's composure, but more importantly, they praised the vulnerability on both sides. It became a teachable moment in a culture often defined by outrage and division. Behind the scenes, Whoopi approached John during a commercial break. They spoke quietly, and, though no microphones caught their words, the warm embrace that followed said everything. Two strong personalities, two distinct lives. And yet, in that moment, one shared truth: healing starts when someone listens, even if it's hard. By the end of the episode, the atmosphere had changed. Not just on the stage, but in the hearts of those watching. It reminded viewers that calm doesn't mean weak, and confrontation doesn't have to end in hate. it can end in understanding. And that's the story that left everyone speechless. Not because someone was silenced, but because two people finally heard each other. Message: in a world driven by noise, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is listen with your heart open and your ego set aside. That's where real change begins.